Welcome to the Ranchonomics Podcast, where we empower you to build a better ranch and transform your operations into a thriving business. I'm your host, John Haskell. Let's get started. This is part 2 of an interview we started last week. If you haven't already, we encourage you to go back and listen to part 1, and we're going to take off from where we left off. Charlotte, as you think about marketing and mindset, do you have some examples you want to share of good demonstrations of these principles in action?
Sure, absolutely. So I was on a coaching call with my group this week, and one rancher raised his hand, and he's been in business several years, and he's stuck lately with this thought of, I should be further along. I should be making more money by now.
Don't we all think that?
We do all think that.
Like we start that as teenagers.
Yeah. And the problem is, so that's what I mean by that mindset is socialized into us. He didn't think there was anything wrong with that. And so when I can point out that when you think I should be further along, how do you make yourself feel? Well, I feel defeated. When you feel defeated, what do? Well, I don't sit down at the computer and write marketing emails because I feel like it's hopeless. And the result you create is you won't get further along. Your thoughts always show up in your results outside of you. So that's an example this week. And once he saw what he was doing to himself, he's like, oh, you mean it's as simple as if I tell myself I should be further along, I'm not going to be successful. And if I tell myself I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, I'm willing, one question I ask in that case is, are you willing to give it all the time it takes? Most farmers get into it when they first start. They think they're going to be profitable in a year or two.
Right.
Are you willing to give it all the time it takes, which is 2 or 3 or 5 years? Are you willing to give yourself time to learn the thing that you've never learned before? They get frustrated. I should be further along. I should know how to write better than this. No, you shouldn't. You've been off farming. You've never studied this. So the I should be further along than this comes up a lot. The other mindset I coach on a lot is I'm not doing it right, or I just need to know the right way to do it. Well, there is no right or wrong way. There's ways that might get you closer, and there's ways that might make you more stuck, but it's different for the next person. So just telling yourself, thinking that I need to know the right way to do this is a non-useful mindset. And most people don't realize that. They think, oh, that's so innocent. What's wrong with that? But every mindset makes you feel an emotion. And thinking something like that, like, I got to figure out the right way to do it, is going to make you feel frustrated. And when you feel frustrated, again, you're not going to feel like learning something new or writing a sales email, and you end up broke. So that's a very common one. I have to know the right way to do it, and I have to do it the right way. There is no right way. And so when we can recognize that we were socialized to think all these things that are keeping us stuck, and then be open to shifting to, I'm figuring this out. I'm learning this. I'm open to making a lot of mistakes. The people that are the most successful have just made many more mistakes than the rest of us, right?
They just pay the tuition, fix them, and move on.
Yes. Mistakes and failures are how we learn and how we become successful.
Yeah. And don't should all over yourself, because that really doesn't do anybody any good.
Yes. That always, if you're feeling frustrated with another person or something in your business, it's almost always because you have a thought, I should, they should, he should, shouldn't, this shouldn't be happening to me. That's another very common mindset that doesn't serve us, that I coach on all the time.
Yeah, I love it. Very good. One of the most powerful growth experiences I got to have was around the time of my 40th birthday. A friend of mine from high school called, and, we hadn't talked for a while, but we've been in touch pretty regularly over the years. And I finished that call with that feeling of, boy, I really thought by the time I got to 40, I'd have more things figured out, And it was exactly what you're talking about. And I had to go on it was about a 2-day mental expedition while I was at work. I was working on a fence project at the time where I was ripping one out of the willows with a dozer and then putting it back in. So And I was doing it by myself. So it was a lot of time to just think. And I got at the end of the second day, I really did get to the point where, well, it certainly didn't turn out the way I thought it would. But boy, there have been some awfully fantastic things that have gotten me to where I was at that time, which is now, almost 15 years ago. But it was a great turning point. I'm thrilled I had that at that time because it has allowed me to reorient from that point forward and not be in that should mindset, but really embrace that, well, here's where we are and this is perfect. Now we keep progressing, right?
Yeah. And a big thing I coach on that you just kind of touched on that people need is giving yourself grace. So you were 40 years old and you thought you'd be somewhere different in your life at that point. And then can you give yourself grace that younger John did everything he had the resources to do? Can you honor him for getting you there? And that's a big part is a lot of my coaching is, can you forgive yourself for younger John did the best he could? And once you have that forgiveness, then you can move on to, all right, how do we want the next 10 years to go? What do we want our intentional mindset, our thoughts to be that will serve us going forward? Because that's what I figured out my own life was a lot of the decisions I had made up until the time I found this work were not really intentional. They were kind of just reaction mode decisions and decisions that I just did what society thought. I was told I was supposed to get married and I was told I was supposed to have kids and, I should go to college and all these things. And so when we start to see how mindset creates every result in our lives, and it is the only thing we have control of, our thoughts, how do I want to think going forward? So I wake up every day and like I told you earlier, I coach my clients on having a set of very intentional thoughts that will help me create the day I want to create today. Like, what do I want my thought to be when I go greet my spouse for the day, when I sit down at my desk for the day, when I go out in the greenhouse? And if it's sitting down at the desk and think, I hate tech, it sucks, you're going to have a miserable experience.
It's not going to make it better.
No, and again, I don't think I could say it often enough that we have to intentionally think positive thoughts because our brain always defaults to the negative. If you look at your spouse and you're like, why are you always so critical? Because they have a human brain. That's what the default is. And if you and I aren't faced with having to go inside and read a book or get help from a coach or a therapist or something to address that, we will always just default to the negative.
Reminds me of I worked with a guy for a while. When you work outside, there's always that one guy who on a cold morning will say about 40 times that it's cold. And I've multiple times told people like, I understand it's cold. You understand it's cold. I don't need you to repeat it 4 or 5 times. Like, we're good. We're cold. Stop it.
Sometimes I hear myself doing that.
I know.
And then I can redirect. And I like to make that clarification too. It's mindset is not once and done. The reason my people coach with me for a year plus is because you don't shift your mindset today and it sticks. You have a human brain that's always fighting to go to the negative. So you need this reminder. And there are days I wake up and like, I hate marketing today. Even though, the other 364 days of the year, I loved it. What's wrong with today? So we're going to struggle, and having those places or people you can go to help pull you out of it, which sometimes it's just yourself saying, okay, stop complaining about the cold. You're here. You get to be alive and doing this.
Very, very good. Okay, so you've mentioned a few things. I think last time we did talk about your website, which is charlottemsmith.com. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, what resources do you have available to people? And again, you came to us most directly from Chloe Deagle. I'd run across your stuff before through a few other people, but you do some coaching and you have groups that you work with, right? And you do work with individuals also?
I don't work with individuals privately. I do individual coaching in my group program. So you can raise your hand and it'll be you and me on camera, but there might be 10 people watching. You can't see each other, but that's how I coach. And I have one program available to the public, my farm marketing boot camp. It's mindset and marketing. You learn everything step by step how to market your farm. And then you're going to tell me, oh, that's great, but I hate marketing. So I'm going to coach you on your mindset. So you actually follow
We're
through.
going to fix that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've got free resources. The two best, most popular ones, charlottemsmith.com/price for profit. That is a pricing and marketing course. And it's a worksheet. And here I am talking to a finance guy, but it helps a lot of farmers, even though I'm not a finance person, although that's a mindset that might not serve me. It is a spreadsheet that helps you consider every cost in your farm that most people forget to consider. And then it calculates, it spits out a price for your flowers, chicken, vegetables, beef. And most farmers do that and they're shocked. They all of a sudden realize, oh, that's why there's never any money at the end of the year. Oh, that's why we're going more and more into debt. I'm not even close to the price I should be charging. So that's a great, wonderful free resource. And the other one is charlottemsmith.com/free email. I think that's just it, free email. And it's an email marketing course. And those 6-day trainings don't think just because they're free, you can overlook them. They'll change your life. I have farmers who email me and say, hey, just from your free courses, we've made so much more money this year. So
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I love helping farmers learn that they can make money.
Yeah. Good. Well, we have a number of customers that have used your resources and say the same thing. That's part of the reason why we started talking originally, because I'd seen your stuff and listened to your podcast. And when they said, oh, no, I did that and it worked, it was like, cool. That's really good to know. So that's fantastic. Okay. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
I think that's good. Yeah.
I think you've covered a number of things. And one of them, this idea of giving ourselves grace. And as we work on changing our mindset and changing our situation, is this idea of, people are always doing the best they can with the information they have at their fingertips. Years ago, I heard a wonderful story. It was actually an audio story, but it was a story of a couple of young men who were raised in a family that we would just say is, less than ideal. And those two young men carried kind of that as a burden with them for quite a while. And at one time, the guy that was sort of telling the story talked about the fact that the day he had a realization that his parents, as flawed as they were doing the best they could, it allowed him a lot of forgiveness in that situation. That allowed him to sort of, reestablish his relationship with his parents at that point in his life. But it's something I feel like we need to do with ourselves, right? We can reestablish a good relationship with ourselves and with our past by really allowing that forgiveness to happen. And again, I think there's never a time when I don't think I'm doing the best I can, right? Sometimes your best isn't very good. So it's, we have to be able to be comfortable with that, but that's oftentimes where we're at.
Yeah, the best we can with the resources we have. And sometimes the resource I will point out to a woman in my program, sometimes it's like, you don't have the resource of a good night's sleep lately because you've got 4 young kids. Give yourself grace that you're lacking some resources that will come back later. But through this season of life, we've got to just give ourselves grace. So that is something that we struggle with. I think it's, again, a socialization that we all should be better, but we will actually be better when we start giving ourselves grace for where we're at right now. We're doing the best we can right now with the resources we have. It's huge. That's just a huge mindset shift that will help all of us. Because when you give yourself grace, you give others around you more grace too.
That's exactly right. And again, I just want to emphasize, we've talked about this before. There is nothing that is not connected to mindset. You've mentioned a whole bunch of things, right? Your finances, your marketing, your relationships, right? Your parenting, the status of your home, so many different things tie to that. One of the best gifts we can give to our children, to our employees, those sorts of things, is that gift of a positive, a good, strong, positive, resilient mindset. When I have been my best self as an employer or as a supervisor even, and can help my, reports be better at mindset, it makes them into better dads, right? It makes them into better husbands. Like, there's nothing that this doesn't touch. And I think we often think about, well, we have work and then we have home, and those things are It's not true, right? I spend as much time with the people I work with as I do with my family. Like, we have to put ourselves in situations, we have to create situations as leaders where that is a very important thing because it has such far-reaching implications.
Yes, just one to support that is my clients. I tell them when they join, like you're the one here getting coached and learning mindset, but it's going to spill over into your family and they don't understand it until it happens. And they come back and they say, my marriage is better than it's ever been, even before we were dating. And all that's happened is you've helped me change how I think. Or they will say, my whole household, me, my husband, and our 7 kids, it's so much calmer. And the only thing that's happened is I've changed how I think because of this program. So it's true. When you change, you affect the whole system around you. And then they see it in action and they can't believe it. And their farm calms down. Their farm gets cleaner. Their animals respond differently. I know this might sound crazy to people until they experience it. And they're like, wow. When I intentionally decide how I want to think, which is your mindset, what I want my mindset to be, and make sure it's positive, supportive, and useful, everything in their life calms down and changes and improves. People say it's magic. It's not, but my clients will say, oh my gosh, it's like magic. We do have the science to show why it's happening. But when it happens to you for the first time in your life, you don't snap at someone or your husband doesn't snap at you because you've changed how you act. It just seems like magic. Like, what just happened? My whole life has improved. So yeah, it's wonderful.
The important is it's like magic. It's actually incredibly true.
Right?
Right. Very good. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This has been a wonderful conversation. And I look forward to being able to do it again sometime in the future. But thank you very much for joining us and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks. Thanks for having me back.
You bet. We'll talk. Thank you for tuning into the Ranchnomics podcast. We hope this episode helped you win today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with a friend.